Ooh.
Oh, nice.
This is such a chilled setup. All right.
Oh.
Hi, everyone.
These
The
are
clock
comfy.
just started.
All right. Wow, this room is pretty big. Hey, everyone. So happy to be here with this amazing panel today. We're going to be talking about the future of NFT photography. I really do want to say that it's amazing to be here this year again and seeing a list of panels, 5 panels dedicated to photography today. That's incredible. Last year's NFT New York City, there was only 1. So clearly there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of change happening within the landscape, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So before we give some introductions, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Claudia Pollock. I'm an artist based in Toronto, Canada. I'm a photographer. I shoot a lot with analog mediums, specifically like cyanotype printing and involving a lot of AI as well. In the past, I was commissioned by Obscura to create a body of work for them. Obscura is an NFT platform. And recently, I actually did an artist residency with Vertical Crypto Art as well. So I've been in this space for a while, since 2020, and have been actively minting photography and looking for opportunities for artists in this space. That's my introduction, and I'd like to pass on the mic.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, everybody. Jason Kingdon here.
Hey, Jason.
Hey. Hey, guys. I am president and COO of OneKin Labs. My team is responsible for putting Michael Yamashita's work on the blockchain. We brought him from a Web 2 landscape into a Web 3 artist. Some of our work with him includes the 4 Seasons of Jojago, a homepage of Nifty Gateway Takeover, in addition to free redeems using GANs. And personally, I hand-coded a lot of, back in the day, using Cargo.ai, hand-coded the rarity traits for his metadata, and all of that amounted to around $900,000 in volume over 8 months.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Little clap there.
Hi, everyone. This is Ilgi Evecan. And do we have anyone from Stockholm? Nordics? No. Yay! Hey, son. Earlier this year, I launched a new venture within Web3, focusing on photography arts as part of Picture This company. So please check it out. I can say that we're in, visual creativity business and trying to create this bridge between the fine art world and crypto space. And so far, we've onboarded great names, great artists, and partnering up with different fairs and galleries, institutions, and that's the best part of Web3, right? So how can we leverage partnerships? And I must say that I'm super proud of our team. We have such a global team, and in the team you will find people who actually created the world's largest photography museum, fairs, and photography magazine. So I can say that the team really gathered around the love of photography, and that's what keeps us going. That's in a nutshell me and what I do at Picture This. And over to you, Mr. Ev.
Yeah, and last but not least, I'm Ev from Toronto, Canada as well. And so I've been involved in photography for the last 20 years, built a photo community called 500px. It's kind of like we worked with major clients from Apple to Uber to Google. And with 500px, we wanted to build a space where photographers can show themselves and build their portfolio. And so my new venture is building kind of like the same thing, the photo sharing curated marketplace that's called Sloika, and bringing photographers, usually traditional photographers, but also the innovation in NFTs that we'll talk here today, into the Web3 world.
Great.
Let's get started.
Awesome. So clearly we have a lot of building happening and a lot of builders here. So before we talk about the future of NFT photography, I'd really like to ask everyone, what was the NFT photography landscape like when you kind of entered the space? And was there anything missing like right off the bat? And since then, how have you seen it evolve? For me personally, when I entered in 2020, early 2021, there really was no NFT photo market. There were a few artists. Giselle Flores is one that comes up in my mind. She's been minting since like 2018, but there wasn't a market like the scale that there is today. And so I'm just curious, based on your experiences, how was that?
It was crazy. There was no NFT photography market. This was in March 2021. We were even told with some of our partner platforms that we were publishing on at the time that we need to enhance it with artificial intelligence and not just have it be as it was. Obviously, they were proven wrong.
Yeah, and I guess I share the same thoughts when I first started, March 2021. There was no photography-focused market, and I must say, necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? So when we were talking with our artists, we realized, okay, we need to create a setup to help them, to onboard them on chain, and that's now the business we're in, right? So we're empowering photographers, galleries, and institutions on this journey. And when we also first started, I remember the market was super celebrity and speculation driven, and people were talking about utilities, and as if utilities can only be like gifts, and we have to, if we have this NFT art, we need to give like a signed print or watch or microwave, whatever. So and for me it's crazy in a way, because we're in the art business, and I'm not really interested in creating a deal-prone collector group, and because it really takes away the attention from art, takes away the attention from the story that we are trying to make, we are trying to communicate. So I think that was also an important balance for us, and that was always our starting points when it comes to, what is value, and it's for us, it's all about story, the context, and the access that we're providing through the NFTs to our collectors. Oh boy, I talk too much. Ev, let's hear from you. What has changed, and how was it?
Right, I want to actually point two things. So first of all, photography is the most popular and most common medium in the world. So billions of photos are taken every day. Photography has changed lives and our view on the world and how we see wars, how we see human race. And at the same time, in the NFT space, it's a tiny little fraction of the overall. So we have Bored Apes, we have Happy Beavers, we have a whole bunch of PvP projects. But photography as a medium is disproportionately small to what it will be and should be. And so the problem arises when you try to onboard those people in a space, and photographers who are dealing with traditional photography and having to deal with the wallet security, with gas fees, with minting and burning NFTs. It's a lot to take in. And so, like, for example, for us, we have a 60-point checklist where we get on a call with photographer, we go through them over this list, we help them to make sure that they are safe and secure. And this shouldn't be that long. It should be like an obvious thing. If you're like, we're still probably a few years away until all of those things are by default included when you're just onboarded, and you just sign up, you have your wallet, and then you can do whatever you want and just focus on art instead of focus on so many other auxiliary things outside of that.
By the way, I just want to add a note there. Speaking of how small the photography market is, and if you look at the groundbreaking sales, we have what I think it started in the early 2000s with maybe Andreas Gursky's Rain, I think it was, and then you have of course Cindy Sherman and Richard Prince. So if you look at those groundbreaking sales, it's only started maybe around like 2000s, and then auction houses actually embraced photography art as a genre, maybe late 90s. So photography market is still definitely small. It's maybe undervalued, but definitely not insignificant. And so these type of innovations, new ways of collecting or new ways of experiencing the art, this genre, it's definitely going to create a quicker maybe domino effect comparing with the other genres. And I think we need to also highlight the fact that there are so many pioneers now praising the photography art, like Gary V, Whale Shark. I mean, there's so much support to this genre, and hopefully it's gonna grow and grow. And now, comparing with last year, we have so many photography-focused platforms as well, popping up right and left. Obviously, now we have the best ones
left,
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting hearing the discussion. Like, we started with like Jason being like, oh, well, we needed to contribute AI into photography, and then like finding utility in photography that's something more than the image. And like, I'm sitting here as an artist being like, well, why does it have to be more than just the photo? I don't want to use the U word, but utility. Like, it is the image, it is the artist. And so it's interesting seeing kind of the evolution happening now, where we have a lot of these like photo dedicated platforms like Soika, like Quantum, Obscura. And I feel like we're now starting to kind of like really understand
Picture
that.
this.
Yes, of course. We're really now trying to understand that it is just the photograph, it's the concept, it's the artist. It doesn't have to be anything more than just that. So I'd like to kind of shift the conversation now to, Ev, you mentioned the process of onboarding artists into this space and kind of the difficulties and challenges in regards to that process. So we have a lot of, I would call, traditional fine art photographers coming into the NFT space now. It's on their radar. I think of Alex Soth as a big inspiration for me, coming into a platform like Assembly, for example. So I really want to ask this panel, as folks kind of like really holding the hands of these artists coming into the space, how has that been for you? And what do we need to bring those photographers in and to really teach them and help them understand what it means to be an artist minting here?
So there's two parts to that question. One is, are you bringing on the photographer yourself, or is the photographer onboarding themselves, repackaging themselves for Web3? So I did the latter for Mike Yamashita, and again, he's a septuagenarian. This man is definitionally a baby boomer, right? Incredibly intelligent, picked himself up by the bootstraps. Amazing story, 40 years with Nat Geo, but he doesn't know how to tweet, right? So that's difficult when a lot of, let's say, NFT alpha exists strictly on Twitter or Telegram. My man had trouble doing Google Meets sometimes. Like, again, he's incredible, incredibly intelligent, knows his way around a camera, 6 ways to Sunday. But when it comes to newfangled technology, sometimes that can be a bit of an obstacle. So for onboarding someone, you just have to tell them the ropes. It's very simple as, you need to tweet, you need to support the community. And by the way, now that he's stood up on his own 2 feet, I've completely removed myself from the entire marketing process. He is in Twitter Spaces. He's gone to super rare events. He's gone to Nifty Gateway events, online, offline, omnichannel. So as long as, once you learn the ropes, which again, just requires you to throw yourself into it, and now that's more for the latter part, how do you then onboard yourself? You support NFT photography community by purchasing other artists that you like, but genuinely, you make sure you're in the spaces, you meet the people online, offline, and it's quite frankly as simple as that, being genuine about it and throwing yourself in the space.
That being said,
Oh no.
I agree with your thoughts, but also working with now so many traditional artists or baby boomers, I can say they need to also focus on what they know best. And that's when platforms like us come into the picture and try to do some of the weightlifting for them. And for us, this is very important. I mean, of course, they need to know how to engage with their audience, how to transition their brand into this new space, and be present wherever their new collectors or audience are. But that being said, if they don't have the bandwidth, it's simply they don't. So then it's us actually coming to the picture. And probably, Ev, when you were talking about your 60-step onboarding, I mean, we have a similar, maybe not 60-step. I don't know if it's going to be a little bit overwhelming, maybe, but I mean, we have a similar process, right? So if they don't have the time or bandwidth, then we have our community managers coming to the picture, help them with, AMA sessions on Discord or Twitter sessions to promote their stuff, to promote their story. And that's where we're coming from. You know, the founders also founded this Photography Scout, the world's largest photography museum, before Picture This. And this is what we've been doing for so many years, and that's where we feel comfortable. So I think an artist should focus on what they know best, and if they don't have the bandwidth, they just simply shouldn't maybe push it. But regarding, did I subtract it too much? The question was how we onboard, right? I think, as you said, hand-holding is it's a keyword there. And trust, because before we even onboard the artists, we have to onboard their collectors, right? We have to provide them, opportunity to sell as well. So that's usually how our journey starts. So we first understand the artists, we take a look at their previous works, we take a look at their story and the galleries they work with, potential partners that we need to onboard together with their project, so that it's like this 360, and fairs, like which fairs then we can push this artwork. So for us, it's like this 360 project, and where we work with them with their go-to-market strategies, onboarding collectors, onboarding community. So I think maybe a similar process.
Well, I think the core of your question is we onboard them because we need the artists and they hold the power. So we actually have to outreach and onboard them because they hold, they have the content, they're creators, we need them. Platforms need them, blockchains need them. There's so much money floating around. And we actually need to give that power back to creators in the first place and recognize that. But the other side is that there's a lot of traditional photographers that are traditionally famous, let's just say that. And when they're selling their archives, when people are selling their older photos, for me, it's like, fine, this is a stage, let's get through this, but we can have NFT native art that uses either ownership data or some other parts to evolve over time. And that's what NFTs can do better than any traditional art. And traditional artists used to have their tools to kind of like, do this in the manual way, but we can start actually giving them more visibility and more exposure through the technology itself. And this is going to be very exciting to see once the photographers sell their archives and establish themselves in space a little bit before moving on to NFT native formats.
Exactly. And I think that's a really interesting point as well, Ilgi, about bringing in like collectors, like the photographers, like collectors into the space too. I feel like that's often missed a lot, especially as artists coming in too, thinking about like who is collecting your work currently. So we're just under 5 minutes on our panel. So I wanted to start kind of like wrapping things up by asking, how do we see the future of NFT photography? That is a big, big question. For me personally, I'm really excited about the work that will be created in the future by photographers, creating work about what's happening in the NFT space, and not kind of what we're seeing a lot of now, which is like work by photographers that they've already shot and it kind of exists as maybe books or prints, and now they're bringing it into NFTs. But I'm really excited about bodies of works that will be created with emphasis on like maybe NFT culture. I think of like Gregory Eddie Jones, who is a photographer who made a body of work called Hanami Blocks, and he definitely referenced like generative nature of like PFP projects and that kind of scope of things within his photography work. So I'm really excited about the works that will be created with this space in mind, with this culture that's being created here.
So very quickly, Mike Yamashita likes to say, cream rises to the top. Anytime your Instagram posts get a lot of traction, that typically also sells very well as an NFT, because I see NFTs as a form of proof of marketing. I think as a result of what we've seen through the past cycles, past months, that the consumer sentiment will get more and more bullish on like higher and more fine pics, JPEGs, real projects, not just all hype. So I think a maturing consumer, in addition to more high-end and focused and curated platforms like my colleagues here.
And also maybe we should, as now the leaders in this space who have the power and influence to push the space forward, I think we need to also make sure to understand how NFTs can facilitate positive change, can leverage positive change. And that's why we at Picture This, for example, working with Offsetra, Carbon-Base, Earth.org for our drops. I think this is so important, and this is something close to my heart. And yeah, I would love to see more and more of these type of approaches going forward. Yeah, what do you think, Ev?
Well, yeah, I guess more like a closing thought that for the future of photography, NFTs to succeed, there has to be a very strong symbiosis between collectors that help propel the work a little bit further and actually push photographers for doing specific steps. For example, there's a collector that's been really pushing for the rights. Many marketplaces avoid this, and they're like, "Oh, you get just a blockchain record. You actually don't get any rights." And he's been pushing to put those rights on chain as well as part of the IPFS data, for example. And the collectors can start informing those movements. Like, for example, you need to have a thesis of your work. You have to designate whether, how the usage of this work can be, and also what are your, hopefully knowing, but like what are your plans for the future, or are you planning to just have a bigger collection than collectors anticipate? And that work has to be done together between the two.
And I think this is coming back to how can we create a, better, more educated creative economy. And when it comes to helping the artists to understand their rights and the possibilities in this space. And that's, I guess, also important for us to make sure we create the right opportunities and spaces to provide them tutorials, educational sessions, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big theme for the next 6 to 12 months.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.